What is up, guys? My name is Sid Regan, and we are back on F1 24 Driver Career. This is Season 1, Episode 7 for the Spanish Grand Prix. Coming up. So we are coming off a chaotic but thoroughly entertaining race at Canada. If you haven't seen that race yet, you should go check it out before you see this one. We were able to grab a podium and second place. Kind of frauded our way up to second place. A little bit like Imola, but this time it was the weather and what tires to use at the end of the race that really determined who was at the front of the field. As we take a look at our rivalries, we've nearly wrested control of recognition away from Hulkenberg, and in our rivalry with Hamilton, it's all about championship points and trying to finish in front of the Mercedes, and Logan Sargent, it's just about driver rating, and we very nearly finished him off. We should be able to beat him in this race. So let's set our goals. Phil has the very tall order of trying to not run into 3 other cars throughout the weekend. We'll try to manage that. Mr. B wants us to out-qualify Hulkenberg, which is always the goal every weekend, so we'll go with that goal. Hulkenberg's been struggling in qualifying all season. He did get his best result in the race in Canada, however, so maybe he'll get some focus from that. And Karen wants us to put laps in this weekend, 10 laps to be exact, so not exactly a high bar. The other goal was to avoid any penalties for like 3 laps, so also not a high bar. We'll go with the laps, I guess. And we'll head over to Sue, and she wants us to perfect the race strategy program, which is the only goal out of all these that makes sense for who the specialist is, in my opinion. She wants us to focus on the strategy. Anyway, so yeah, we'll perfect the race strategy program for her. Take a look at the development chart heading into Spain. We are still the second worst car officially on paper. However, the development graph doesn't show a massive discrepancy between most of the cars. The biggest gap is the top 5 and then down to V-Carb, but even that isn't a massive gap. So we have 822 resource points. Let's go see what we can afford. I have my eye on that major weight reduction upgrade, and that's what I decided on. I shopped around a little bit, and the only other thing that interested me was the major engine power, and that was mainly to get to the ERS upgrades. So in the Drivers' Championship, Verstappen still leads Alonso by 37, with Perez a further 4 points back of Alonso. So the Drivers' Championship is by no means locked up. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull lead Ferrari by 48, and we actually have an outside chance of 4th or 5th, being only 18 points back of McLaren and Aston Martin, who are tied for 4th. And I think that's all we have to do. Let's head in to qualifying.
It's a Catalonian qualifying for you today. Welcome along to Spain, to Barcelona, and wherever you are in the world. Do you feel the need? The need for speed?
Well, after that cringy intro, I'm hoping for the best here in Spain as always. Unfortunately, I don't think this track is very suited to our car, at least at this development stage at the moment.
Okay, engines fired up, we're set.
We get ready to head out on our final lap of Q1. Our first lap in qualifying was a lot like practice. I really struggled with the balance of the car. Just like in practice, I really struggled to find a setup that was a compromise between the high speed and low speed corners. I think this track just really exposes our lack of chassis and aero upgrades compared to the other teams, or at least compared to the top teams. I also really struggled with the braking, and I'm not sure why, as we locked up on the entrance to turn 5. And this uphill change of direction chicane of turns 7 and 8 is always really tricky. And we're fully flat for turn 9. And that's the sector that would give us the most trouble pretty much all day, is sector 2. As we're entering sector 3 now. Keeping it tight to the inside. Getting the power down as soon as possible. Fully flat in the right-hander. Fully flat in qualifying in the right. And that takes us up to 5th place, so we were able to get a decent lap in. Good enough to get us into Q2 and 9th. That was by far the best lap we'd done of the day, only 4/10 off the leaders. and our teammate is out in 17th, and Hulkenberg's qualifying woes continue.
Okay guys, everyone be aware, the car's ready to go.
This is our final run of Q2 after we had to back off the last lap just before this one, as we'd made a mistake in the third sector, nearly spinning in turn 12. As we go through turns 1 and 2, we run a little bit wide of the second corner.
We've dropped to P15.
So we put a ton of pressure on ourselves to make Q3, and we have to do it on this lap alone, as we once again failed to get a good banker lap in. And Spain was actually one of my favorite tracks on the last game, but I haven't quite got to grips with it yet with the current handling model, as we run a little bit wide out of turn 5.
2 minutes remaining in the session. We need a good lap here or we're out of qualifying. Come on.
And we just touched a sausage curb on the uphill 7 and 8 chicane as Mark radios to ratchet up the pressure, reminding us that we haven't put a lap in yet, and this is the only time we're going to get. And we definitely didn't nail the setup, as the car doesn't feel amazing balance-wise. We're kind of juggling between understeer and oversteer, depending on the corner. Flat out right-hander into the final corner. Where's this gonna put us? Oh, it's only good enough for 11th. So we are not gonna make Q3. So we missed Q3 by a little under 2/10. No real surprises heading into Q3, as all the top teams have locked out the top 10 positions. Aston Martin's looking strong in 3rd and 4th, and Hamilton makes it into Q3, giving him the edge in our rivalry heading into the race. As we'll get a slight ratings boost in the pace, even though I felt like I struggled the entire qualifying session, putting a good lap together. So weather won't play a factor in this Grand Prix like it did in Canada. Our components are doing a little bit better than I imagined they would have, and that's probably thanks to Hulkenberg focusing on durability, while I mostly focused our upgrades on performance. Let's head to the grid.
So many eventful races here in Barcelona over the years. Do you remember Max Verstappen's first win on debut for Red Bull here in 2016? 2 years before, we had the dramatic coming together of Hamilton and Rosberg going towards turn 4. There's always a treat in store as we head back to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. It's an updated track at Catalunya, and we welcome the removal of the chicane in the final sector, shortening lap times and reducing the total running to 2.9 miles and 14 turns. This was actually the original setup for the track, and it hasn't been used since 2007. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Perez, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Stroll, Haas, Gasly, Ricciardo, Albon, Tsunoda, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Bottas, and Zhou Guanyu. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So Verstappen and Norris lock out the front row, with Max, the championship leader, on pole position, giving him the best opportunity to extend that points lead that got narrowed after Canada, after he and Red Bull had a very tough race. And Alonso starting down in 8th, the driver second in the championship points.
Good. Gearbox is responding normally. Make sure to warm up the tyres and brakes. Warm the tyres and brakes throughout the lap, please.
We'll have some work to do to stay close to Verstappen at the front of the field.
Okay, good parking there, mate. Now we need to make sure we get a great launch as the race starts.
And the 5 red lights. The Spanish Grand Prix is underway. As we've had a bit of a slow launch off the start, but Gasly and the Alpines had a huge start on those soft tires. We're using a lot of battery to pull back even with Gasly heading into the first corner. As we run into the back of Sainz, what happened? As Verstappen rejoins, there's been some kind of melee at turn 1, and we are now starting to pull away from the driver who started on pole position. Gasly gets through on the Red Bull as well, so Verstappen's huge lockup into the first corner has dropped him from pole down to 11th as we're watching the battle between the Aston Martins for 7th and 8th. Stroll and Alonso are side by side heading into turn 5, and Stroll's giving Alonso a very good fight, but there should be team orders at Aston Martin as Alonso's 3rd in the championship right now, and Verstappen's just made a huge mistake, and Alonso does get ahead, heading into the uphill 7-8 chicane, but all that battling has slowed Stroll down enough for us to get aggressive. Heading into the tight turn 10, we make a big dive up the inside of the Aston Martin, a little bit of tire banging at the apex, and we are through up into 8th, and at a track where I know we're going to struggle a little bit for pace. We have to be aggressive early as we watch Verstappen trying to climb back into the points, attacking Gasly in the Alpine as they're side by side through the first chicane, and just like Canada, the championship leader is going to have to fight his way back through the field, but Gasly manages to stay ahead heading into turn 4, and the prey is going to become the predator as Stroll runs wide on the exit of turn 4, and Gasly's going to try to go around the outside of Stroll into turn 5, and he makes short work of the Aston Martin. Piastri trying to become the number 1 in the McLaren 1-2, and he's through, trying to block out bad memories of Canada, where he retired from first very early in that race. As we go defensive against Gasly down the main straight, using a lot of battery, make a little bit of contact, we dive back up the inside and get back through. Gasly left us no room on the inside there, so we had to force our way through. We were lucky we didn't break a wing, but we hold on to 8, just behind my battle with Gasly. Verstappen is still struggling to get through the traffic. This time it's Stroll, and Aston Martin would very much like Stroll to hang on to this position to help Alonso in the Drivers' Championship. But also in the Constructors, Aston Martin are tied with McLaren, and McLaren are 1-2 right now. As we head up the hill through the 7-8 chicane, Gasly is all over us in that Alpine. And he seems to have found some genuine pace, at least early in this race. And in the DRS zone, there's nothing we can do this time into turn 10. Gasly is through, dropping us down to 9th, and I am struggling for pace on this medium.
Try to stay with them. They might make a mistake and we could still regain the position.
Well off the back of Alonso in 7th. We'll try to stay close enough to use the DRS, but it's going to be a fight to stay in the points today. We're using a lot of battery in the DRS. We fake to the inside and dive to the outside, and we're able to get past Gasly. And Stroll's going to try to follow us through as well. The Aston Martin and Alpine are side by side heading towards turn 4, but Gasly is able to nick back ahead. Gasly and Stroll have continued that battle the following lap, giving us a brief reprieve from being attacked as they attack each other instead. But we have a little bit of a wiggle out of the second corner.
Okay, mate, engine's running very, very hot. Engine's running hot. Let's try and keep it cooler.
So just as we break the DRS to Stroll, our engine begins to overheat, and we're going to lose straight line speed. And as we head towards lap 7, Gasly's softs have begun to fade as he's under attack from Ricciardo in the V-Carb. They went side by side through the high-speed right-hander of turn 14, and Albon and Tsunoda look to be getting involved in the party. As Gasly's on the inside, we're going to go 3 wide between Gasly and the 2 V-Carbs. And it looks like it's Tsunoda who comes out on top with a huge double overtake from 14th all the way up to 12th. And Gasly's able to keep Ricciardo behind, so he holds on to 13th for the moment. And we're going to have to play some DRS games with Stroll. As we head through turn 9, Stroll's going to attack us with DRS, and we're not going to fight it. We're going to stay behind so we can have DRS down the main straight. Otherwise, we're going to get swallowed up by the much faster Verstappen and Carlos Sainz behind. Also, we have a big snap in turn 12, and I was really struggling with the balance of this car on heavy fuel. So our plan worked initially. 1 lap later, we're going to let Stroll by again, but this time we're under attack from Verstappen as well as we head into turn 10. And Sainz is nearby as well, and this is why we absolutely had to maintain DRS down the main straight. Otherwise, we're quickly going to drop out of the points, down to 11th.
Nice work, you smashed it. Really good job on hitting that target, mate.
As we finally got our engine temperatures under control, we're going down the outside of Stroll as he went defensive. And Verstappen's gonna try to follow us through as well. And it was at this point that I realized we probably should have done the soft, medium, soft strategy. But I was still holding out hope that we could find some pace on the hards. As at the front of the field, Piastri's starting to feel the pressure of Norris and Perez in the Red Bull. As we're gonna go 3 wide into turn 1 for the lead of the race, as Norris kind of got pinched down to the inside, as Piastri became sandwiched in the middle of the Red Bull and the other McLaren, but he kept his cool and somehow came out with the lead of the race still. Perez improves up to second. Verstappen was able to get through on Stroll the last lap, as we throw a half-hearted defensive move, but really we're gonna let Verstappen through. And the DRS games begin anew, as Barcelona is highlighting some real deficiencies in our car, both in the chassis and in the aero department, but we'll do our best to limit the damage. As on lap 12, Perez is going for the lead of the race. Piastri's giving him a tough fight through the first chicane as they go side by side through the second corner. This would be a huge buoy for Perez's championship hopes, as his teammate is all the way down in 8th, battling the likes of me. As we go through turn 9, we touch the inside curb and have a big snap of oversteer and nearly lose the car. Verstappen's gonna go by. We were gonna let him by anyway, but that's just indicative of how this whole race has gone. The car is really on edge through the high speed and really understeery in the low speed, and we're just having trouble finding any pace at all. We were able to hold on to the DRS of Verstappen, but the Red Bull peels off into the pits, so it'll be back to playing our reindeer games with Stroll, as I'm debating on coming in early myself. And at the end of lap 14, we decided to do just that, 2 laps earlier than our projected pit stop window. But I felt like I had to do something, as I was really just struggling along. As we nailed a turn in, we could really use a clean pit stop right now.
Okay, go, go, go. Perfect job from you and the crew there, mate. We're delighted with that. Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track.
And we did get undercut by Sainz and the Ferrari, and we come out just in front of Verstappen. But Verstappen's been on those mediums for 1 lap, and they are up to temperature. It's going to be hard to keep these cold hards in front of the Red Bull. And as we start to see the pit stops shake out, the Mercedes drivers went for a huge undercut and have ended up 1-2. Piastri comes out just in front of Perez, and a bold, aggressive strategy has put my rival within striking distance of the lead. And as we head on to lap 17, we have lost the DRS to Verstappen, but as Stroll comes out of the pits, we do come out ahead of him.
The ERS is running a bit low. Look into changing the ERS mode in the MFD for a more conservative burn rate, or you might want to try some lifting or gentle braking to recharge.
Oh.
Okay, mate.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'll try that. It's not like I didn't notice I was burning a ton of battery trying to get back into the DRS of the car in front as we have another big snap of oversteer, nearly spinning it in turn 4, and that might be the nail in the coffin of trying to stay in Verstappen's DRS. It's at the front of the field. Hamilton is attacking his teammate for the lead of the race. They're side by side through the second corner, and as they go into the high-speed turn 3, Lewis Hamilton leads the Spanish Grand Prix. So as our rival takes over the lead of the race, we are struggling to keep Stroll and the Aston Martin behind us. As we have a big lockup into turn 5, running wide onto the curb, Stroll's gonna try to attack us into the uphill turn 7 and 8, and he pulls off a nifty move getting through on us in a part of the track not known for its overtaking, as there was a yellow flag behind us, and I was praying for a safety car at this point, as Albon is out of the race. So let's see what happened to the Williams. He was struggling down in 16th, not having a race to remember either. And as he heads out of turn 4 towards turn 5, that Mercedes engine has gone tits up, and he pulls over to the side in the gravel. And how is that not a safety car? As we are still struggling for pace. But we have managed to keep the DRS on Stroll. Stroll goes defensive into the first corner, and we are able to swipe around the outside and improve back up into the points. And if we can snag even 1 point out of this race with all the struggles that we've had, I would call that a win. And on to lap 22, Verstappen has managed to catch the back of that Ferrari, and Sainz doesn't put up much of a fight, and the Red Bull's up into 8. And one small piece of good news for Verstappen is Alonso is only 1 place ahead of him in 7th. So we head through the double right-handers of turn 13 and 14, ready to start lap 24. We're gonna dump a lot of battery trying to defend from Stroll, and Aston Martin could really use Stroll scoring some points in their constructors battle with McLaren. As Stroll does get up into 10th, I'm hoping his medium tires will start to die off as we get towards the end of this race. But as much as these hard tires are sliding around, I don't know that they're going to be in much better shape than his mediums. And by lap 27, the lead the Mercedes had gotten from the big undercut has evaporated, and the Red Bull is trying to pull the double overtake on both Mercedes. But the Mercedes build a silver wall, going side by side into the first corner. They've managed the teamwork and kept that Red Bull behind, giving Russell the lead and keeping Hamilton in second as we use the DRS to get through on Stroll into the first corner as Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race.
Okay, mate, your lap times are all over the place right now. We've got to have consistency. Come on, we can do better than this.
I mean, our lap times are inconsistent because we have DRS every other lap mark, and I'm more worried about keeping Stroll behind and holding on to 1 point so we get something out of this difficult race in Spain. Down the main straight on lap 29, Perez goes to the inside, Hamilton goes to the outside, and they both go past Russell as Hamilton fights to hang on to the lead for Mercedes, but Perez will have the inside line for the high-speed turn 3, and Perez takes over the lead of the race. Throwing down a gauntlet in the championship fight, Piastri is attacking Russell into turn 4 on the same lap. Russell's at risk from dropping from the lead down to 4th in a couple of corners. Both Mercedes-powered cars stay side by side through the slow-speed turn 5. Piastri gets a slightly better exit, pulling slightly ahead towards the uphill turn 7 and 8, and Piastri has nicked the podium off of Russell. We don't bother going defensive as Stroll goes up the inside into turn 10, taking 10th.
Try to stay with them. They might make a mistake and we could still regain the position.
We just have to stay within a second in this DRS strategy battle. As we watch the fight at the front of the field, Piastri is pressurizing Hamilton, and Norris is putting the pressure on Russell. The McLarens, who led big portions of this race, are trying to work their way back to the front. As both Mercedes and both McLarens are side by side, Hamilton has held off Piastri, but Norris is still side by side with Russell. As we head towards turn 4, Russell goes defensive, and Norris tries to hang it around the outside, and this banger of a battle continues towards the slow speed turn 5. Norris holds the inside, but Russell manages to keep it around the outside of turn 5. Still side by side as we head towards the uphill section, and they still go side by side through the uphill section, and Russell manages to hold on to 4th. What a battle! Will Norris throw another move into turn 10? Russell goes defensive and locks up. That's gonna let Leclerc, Alonso, and Verstappen through. He rejoins just ahead of Sainz. As our back and forth continues with Stroll, the Aston Martin gets through on the inside of turn 10. And our DRS back and forth has allowed Gasly to close in. And on lap 31, the Ferrari of Leclerc, who's had a pretty anonymous race, is attacking up the inside of Norris, and Leclerc improves up into 4th. He's quietly had himself quite a good race. And on the penultimate lap, Stroll just managed to stay in our DRS. We're gonna dump some battery to stay ahead of him, but I think his mediums have started to go off, and that we are on the slightly better tire now. And the Aston Martins have struggled a little bit for pace in this race. Stroll is stuck with us, but Alonso hasn't really been able to move forward much. In a race where Verstappen made a mistake and fell back through the field, Alonso could have put a big dent in his championship points lead. He's really only managed to stay 1 place ahead of Verstappen. And instead it's Perez, as we go on to the final lap, who leads this race and looks likely to win it, who will take a huge chunk out of the championship lead.
Really good job with that target, mate. Okay, you just started the final lap of the race. Final lap. Gap to your teammate behind, 13.2 seconds.
And our DRS strategy has worked out perfectly as we pass Stroll on the final lap, heading now down towards turn 4. We only have one DRS zone to survive, to hold on to this point through the final corners. Sergio Perez through turn 14. And Perez wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Piastri second, and Hamilton rounds out the podium. Alonso will finish in 6th and Verstappen down in 7th. As we head up the hill through 7 and 8, Stroll is close behind us. He has one more DRS zone to try to steal the point from us. We're gonna dump all the battery we have. The Aston Martin is not close enough as we enter turn 10. Now it's just a matter of not making a mistake. Through turn 12 and the high speeds of turn 13 and 14. We run a little bit wide out of 12, but we are going to hold on as we head through turn 14 to the final point in the Spanish Grand Prix. And that was a very difficult race.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
We had no pace all day. We were lucky to get out with a point, and that was a tough reality check after the amazing races of Imola and Canada.
Sergio Perez has absolutely smashed the opposition. It's victory for Perez.
What a great way to turn the situation around. And you know what they say, it's not about how you fall off the horse, it's about how you get back on it. And today, they've done a great job of turning the page and rectifying their wrongs.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
So Perez, in one race, brings himself back into the title fight, back into second in the Drivers' Championship with a statement win, and in a moment we'll see how close he is to his teammate in the standings. So that lockup from George Russell late dropped him all the way down to 8th. Hamilton with a podium will move ahead of us in the rivalry challenge. And our teammate was only able to work his way up to 16th, showing that the car really wasn't well suited to this track. And Perez throws down the gauntlet with a big win, bringing him within 23 points of Verstappen at the top of the Drivers' Championship. I mean, that's one retirement and a win away from taking over the lead. So the top of the championship is really tightening up. And in the constructors, Red Bull extend their lead to 68 over Ferrari. McLaren break the tie for 4th place with Aston Martin and take a 23-point lead. We hold on to 6th, but fall 25 points back of Aston Martin for 5th. We take a big hit, falling 6 points behind Hamilton in our rivalry. So the 7-time world champion has pulled a gap on us for the moment. On the positive side, we have won our rivalry with Logan Sargent. So they gave us 1,500 points of focus. That's a good bonus for us. So our rating overall goes up, but that was a really difficult race. And I'm not sure how the pace should be going up after that. Part of that was our aero and chassis deficiencies. Part of it was I didn't get the setup right. We do pull dead even with Nico Hülkenberg in recognition amongst the team, though, and that's huge, as our goal has always been to make this team ours. And amongst our specialists, we passed all of our specialist goals. Apparently, we didn't pass the power unit consultant goal. How did we not pass the power unit consultant goal? We did out-qualify our teammate, and that's not our power unit consultant. That's Paolo, the quality assurance tester. So why is he telling us we failed our power unit goal? Paolo's not even supposed to be in town this week. Anyway, we passed all the other specialists. Nothing else we can do about it at the moment. I'm gonna have to have a word with Mr. B, the actual power unit consultant, about what happened and where was he this week. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this week. I'll see you next week when we hit the halfway point of the season for the Austrian sprint race. For now, goodbye.